The idea that the young universe was a slow and orderly place may well be wrong. Our intuition suggests the opposite. The closer we move toward the Big Bang, the more everything ought to be small, diffuse, still under construction. It is a seductive idea because it fits neatly with what we see around us. Cities take centuries to grow, continents shift over millions of years, stars are born on timescales no human can truly grasp. But the moment we aim an instrument capable of genuinely looking back in time, that intuition begins to tremble. And it does not tremble over minor details. It trembles at the very points where we thought the accounts were settled, in the lines we believed definitive, in the numbers we used to tell the whole story. There is a simple reason why the notion of a simpler, cosmic past feels so plausible. At the beginning there was less time, and therefore fewer opportunities to assemble complex structures. At the beginning there was a broth of hot particles, and gravity had to struggle against pressure and expansion. At the beginning light itself had to pass through a haze of gas, and that haze should have smothered the faintest signals. Yet when a modern telescope peers into those epochs, it does not find only dimmed traces or fragile embryos. It finds objects that already seem mature. It finds galaxies that, just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, appear too bright, too massive, too organized. As if someone had skipped the intermediate steps. As if a chapter were missing from the plot. The paradox is not merely aesthetic, not just a matter of emotional surprise. It is a problem of physical accounting. To build many stars in very little time requires cold gas that can collapse, matter that can clump together, a sequence of mergers and accretions that, according to the simplest models, should take longer than the time available. When galaxies emerge that look already large, the question that ignites is blunt. Where does all that mass come from so quickly? And if the mass is there, why does it not distribute itself according to the expected rhythms? One possibility is that we are misreading the light. Another is that we are underestimating how efficiently primordial gas could turn into stars, perhaps under conditions that no longer exist. But there is a third path, more unsettling. Perhaps the beginning was not a clean beginning. Perhaps it was not the first page. This is the point where the story stops being merely a collection of surprising galaxies and becomes an inquiry into the structure of cosmic time itself. Because galaxies are not an isolated detail. They are witnesses. If they truly grow too fast, then either the physics of the early universe was different, or our reading of that epoch is incomplete, or we are looking at a reality that carries earlier scars. And here a second anomaly enters the scene, subtler yet more fundamental, because it concerns not what exists within the universe but the universe itself, how fast it is expanding. Measuring expansion sounds straightforward. Observe the light, measure its redshift, link distance and velocity. In practice, however, there are two roads that should lead to the same number, and they do not. One road uses the very young universe, the fossil radiation of the Big Bang and its statistical imprints, and from there infers a present-day expansion rate. The other road uses the nearby universe, variable stars and supernovae, a distance ladder built step by step, and from there measures the expansion directly today. The problem is that the results do not coincide. One side tends toward a value around 67 km per second per megaparsec. The other leans toward roughly 73. It is not a trivial gap. It is a fracture that persists through corrections, new data, cross-checks. And when a fracture holds that long, the question changes shape. What if it is not an error? What if it is a signal? At this point, the traditional image of the universe as an isolated system, born from a single event and then left to evolve alone, begins to feel less solid. Because a wrong expansion rate could mean there is something in the universe's contents we are not counting, or that gravity behaves differently on large scales, or that the universe's history is more intricate than the standard account. And this is where ideas long kept at the margins because they seemed too speculative begin to return with a new face. Not as fantasies, but as attempts to reconcile clues that refuse to align. If the young universe looks too mature and the present universe expands at an ambiguous speed, then perhaps we are not looking at a single linear narrative, but at overlapping chapters. Chapters that may not even belong to the same edition of the cosmos. If multiple cosmic domains existed, or if our universe interacted with something external during its earliest phases, the effects might not blaze like lightning. They could be discrete, written into parameters, hidden in statistics, woven into the growth times of the first galaxies. And the most destabilizing part is that, in some mathematical models, such an interaction could shift precisely that number, distort precisely that expansion, render coherent what today appears inconsistent. But if that door opens even a millimeter, the next question becomes inevitable. What does "before the Big Bang" truly mean? Here a more radical idea emerges, not because it speaks of many universes as separate bubbles, but because it speaks of succession. A universe that dies and another that is born, not as an exception but as a rule. In this view, what we call the Big Bang is not an absolute debut, it is a transition. A handover between one era and the next. And the remarkable thing is that, if such a passage existed, it would not leave an obvious signature, like writing across the sky. It would leave distorted traces, compatible with noise, camouflaged within phenomena we can also explain in other ways. Traces you can ignore for years, until someone decides to take them seriously and asks, why here? Why this shape? Why this scale? In studies connected to a hypothesis of cyclic cosmology, it has been proposed that the end of a previous universe could deposit energy into the next in a very particular way. If, in the distant future of a cosmic era, everything thins out, massive particles decay or become irrelevant, and radiation dominates, then the distinction between scales might blur. In a world ruled by light, certain geometric transformations become possible. In that context, the evaporation of supermassive black holes through a quantum process might not be merely a remote epilogue, but an unintended message. A message that crosses the boundary between eras and re-emerges billions of years later as subtle anomalies in the cosmic microwave background. Not dramatic scars, but circles, regions slightly warmer or cooler than expected, with angular sizes that recall a familiar object in the sky, as if the cosmos had used a repeatable ruler. The crucial point is that none of this is unanimously accepted. And rightly so. The cosmic microwave background is a sea of fluctuations, and in a sea it is always possible to mistake a wave for a signal. Statistics can deceive, and interpretation can chase patterns the mind longs to see. Yet the history of physics is full of ideas that seemed excessive for decades until instruments forced us to examine them closely. And today the instruments are changing. They are not looking only at fossil radiation. They are watching the birth of the first galaxies, the chemistry of the first stars, the emission lines cutting through the primordial fog. And precisely there, where gas should have smothered the light, another anomaly shifts our attention. Some very young galaxies seem to pierce the darkness too early, as if reionization, the epoch when the universe shed its haze of neutral hydrogen, began sooner or proceeded faster than expected. A tiny galaxy observed when cosmic time had barely begun to flow can appear capable of flooding space with ultraviolet radiation, leaving a precise signature such as Lyman alpha light, which should be easily absorbed yet still reaches us. To do so, it must have carved around itself an enormous ionized bubble, hundreds of thousands of light-years of gas rendered transparent. But who has enough power, so early, to excavate such a cavity before the universe has had time to prepare the ground? A cluster of extraordinarily hot stars? An active nucleus fueled by a black hole growing faster than we believed possible? Or a mixture of both, in an environment that resembles nothing we see today? These questions have a side effect. They force us to rethink the words we use. When we say, first stars, we imagine gradualism. When we say, first galaxies, we imagine fragility. When we say, beginning of time, we imagine simplicity. But if the primordial universe produces mature structures, if ultraviolet energy opens corridors in the gas ahead of schedule, if expansion depends on the method by which we measure it, then the beginning is no longer a calm region describable by a single narrative. It becomes a crossroads where multiple explanations compete, and each comes at a price. If you claim star formation was more efficient, you must explain how. If you argue black holes grow too fast, you must explain where the fuel comes from and why we do not see them everywhere. If you posit a missing cosmic component, you must describe its face, its interactions, and why we have not already captured it in other experiments. And if you suggest the universe may be part of a chain, then you must confront the hardest question. How do you recognize an echo from a previous era without mistaking it for a simple whim of the data? Here the tension rises because, for the first time, we are not speaking of an idea confined to philosophy. We are speaking of an idea that attempts to produce observable predictions. If circular imprints in the cosmic microwave background truly correspond to extreme events from a prior era, then those imprints should display specific features, non-random distributions, a recognizable statistical signature. It is not enough to say, there are circles. One must show that those circles do not emerge just as readily from standard models or instrumental noise. This is where the contest unfolds, not between belief and skepticism, but between competing models and ever-improving data. Likewise, if the overly large and overly early galaxies are real and not illusions caused by dust, faulty distance estimates, or exotic stellar populations, then there should be measurable consequences. A distribution of masses, a frequency, a connection to the cosmic environment in which they form. If reionization began earlier, we should find more bubbles, more Lyman alpha lines cutting through the gas, more large-scale ionization signals. And if the expansion tension signals new physics, that new physics should leave traces elsewhere, in the way structures grow, in gravitational lensing, in the behavior of dark matter. In other words, the universe is offering clues in multiple places at once. That is what makes this moment so magnetic. It is not a single isolated mystery. It is a constellation of anomalies that seems to point toward a shift in perspective. The final question, then, is not, does a multiverse exist? Because that word alone can mean too many things. The more precise question is this: is our cosmological account complete, or is it describing only one section of the story? If it is only a section, the emerging image is no longer that of a universe born once and aging until it fades away. It is the image of a reality that changes state, that transforms its extremes into initial conditions, that recycles its end as an ingredient for a new beginning. A reality in which the very notions of before and after must be handled with care. Because if one era can pass energy to the next, then some structures we interpret today as statistical accidents might be relics. And some accelerations we call discrepancies might be consequences. This does not mean the answer is already written. It means the point at which we stand is rare. Science usually advances by shaving off details. Here, it may need to change the frame. And in cosmology, the frame is everything. It determines what you consider possible, what you consider unlikely, which questions you regard as sensible. If the frame shifts, the way you look at those distant galaxies shifts as well. You no longer see them as isolated objects lost in time. You see them as marks left at the margins of a transition. As flashes arriving from an era when the rules were not yet the ones we are used to, or perhaps when the rules themselves were the outcome of a previous history, and we are reading only the last page of a much thicker volume. And when you lift your eyes to the night sky, the feeling changes. You are not observing distance alone. You are observing an archive. An archive that may contain, hidden between the lines of light, the proof that our universe is not a starting point, but a passage. If you have made it this far, it means you value curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It is the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.